Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about a solder iron, and if you've watched my channel before, you know that I am relatively new to this hobby. One of the biggest hurdles you kind of got to overcome if you're getting into FPV or drones or whatever you want to call it in general is there's a lot of stuff that you need to buy at the outset. Transmitter, goggles, batteries, battery charger, solder iron. And I struggled at first trying to get into this because I wanted to make sure I was buying stuff that would work. And I looked at a bunch of different solder irons and solder stations, and one of the more popular ones, which is the Hakko solder station, I strongly considered getting that. But a friend of mine, David, started using this one, and what this is the goes by a couple of names. So it's called a TS100 in a lot of places. What I ended up doing was buying this from Amazon. It's called the SaneSmart Pro 32, and it's basically a T100 that comes with a power supplier, basically just a laptop adapter. This is a really popular field solder iron, so people use this as a portable solder iron that they take out to the field. I decided to go ahead and get this as my main solder iron, and for what I've been using it for so far, which is primarily building and repairing little micro drones like this one, it's been pretty awesome. I'll go through some of the pros and cons of going with this versus a kind of full-size solder station, and I'll explain to you why I chose this one, and I've kind of been happy with that choice. Eventually down the road, I probably will get a larger full-size solder station. I'll explain why in a minute, but if you're kind of looking for, if you're getting into this and you're looking at buying a solder iron that's going to work, I've been using this for a few months. You can see it's not unused, so yeah, I have used this quite a bit, and so far I've been happy with it. Let me just come right out and say it. I am not a soldering expert. In fact, I'm pretty lousy at soldering. I think that special set of challenges when you're trying to work on something this small, all your solder points are really, really small. You have to be really, really precise. And that was one of the reasons why I went with this one. The original solder iron I was using did not have variable temperature control. It didn't have a digital readout. It basically just got really, really hot, and that was it. And I was going through tips left and right. Part of that was I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't taking care of my tips, but they were just oxidizing like crazy because when I would turn the solder iron on, it would just be on full blast, and that was it. And for a while, I just thought that, I wasn't going to be able to do this, that I wasn't good enough at soldering. But I watched a lot of videos on kind of solder theory and technique. And when I started using this made a big difference. It looks like it's a cheap little light duty solder iron, but it's actually really good. This one that I bought came with the power adapter, but really you can use any kind of 12 to 24 volt standard laptop adapter you might have. So if you have something like that already, cool, you can get one without it. What else came in the box? Instruction manual, and this is a pretty in-depth instruction manual. And the little Allen wrench and some extra set screws. So basically what's different about this solder iron from a standard solder iron is the tip and heating element are one part. So this all comes off when you get it. It's not installed. It's just a little set screw here, and you push. In fact, I can take it apart and show you what that looks like. Just a little set screw right here. You just loosen it up, and it comes with a couple of spare ones. This is the tip and heating element together. There really isn't anything wrong with this from a functionality standpoint. What's not so great about this is if you wear out your tip or oxidize your tip and you need to buy a new tip, you're going to have to buy this whole piece. These go for about $10. So a little bit more expensive maybe than just a tip on a kind of standard solder station, but not horribly so. All you gotta do is push that in, and then put your little set screw back in, and you're good to go. So what's good about this? First off, it's temperature controlled, and the temperature control is really, really good. It's got an OLED display with a digital readout, and I'll show you that in a second. And not only can you control the temperature very accurately, it does compensate. So when you start using it, if you're soldering something heavy, for instance, it'll start, you're transferring all your heat off the iron and it will compensate and pick back up very quickly. It does heat up very, very fast. It holds its heat really, really well. And it seems like the temperature is accurate. The other thing that's cool about this, and the reason why this is really popular as a portable solder iron, is because you get an adapter, like a barrel jack to an XT60, and since this takes 12 to 24 volts, you can plug in like a 3, 4, or 5S battery in here and solder right off a LiPo. I like it because it's really compact. You don't have this bulky kind of base unit that you need to mess around with. They don't have a ton of bench space. So this is cool. What's also not so great about this is it doesn't come with, if you buy a solder station, it's normally going to have a holder for the solder iron. That's okay though, because if you got a friend with a 3D printer, that's where things come in really handy. David printed this for me. This is a little holder he found on Thingiverse that is actually designed to fit this exact solder iron. And there's just a metal washer in there. And I just use that, and I keep you can put a sponge here. I actually use one of these guys, so I don't really put the sponge there. So doesn't come with a holder. This thing goes for around $50 or $60, and I think I paid just under $60 for mine. And it came with the power brick. If I want to take this over to a buddy's house and work on something, this is all I need to bring, or I can even run it off a LiPo, in which case I just need this and a DC barrel jack to XT60 adapter or whatever, however you want to get plugged into your battery. Get it hooked up here, and I'll kind of show you how fast it heats up. DC input, where you're going to plug your power source, and micro USB port is not to run the solder iron. That's so you can update the firmware. I think this is what like STM32 based, and there's actually you can load custom firmware on here, which is pretty cool. So I haven't done that. We'll plug in, and in case you forget, it tells you press the button to turn it on. Let's see how fast it gets hot. It's in Celsius. It goes, this has a temperature range of 100 to 400 degrees Celsius, so I'm already up to temperature almost. I can start soldering almost immediately, so pretty fast, way faster than the other solder iron I used to use. I don't know if this is any faster than like a Hakko station or whatever, but it's really quick. It's like 10 seconds or something like that, and you're ready to go. The other thing I really like about this, while we're talking about it, is if you do forget that it's on, and don't touch it for 2 or 3 minutes. I think you can change that in the settings. There's some kind of motion sensor or accelerometer, whatever you want to call it, inside there, and it will automatically go into like a standby mode. So that's great, because if you forget and you kind of put it down and you start working on something, it will automatically shut off after a few minutes. And then you just press the button and then you're ready to go again. One of the downsides to this kind of deal where you're using like basically a laptop power supply is, this cord is not really great. It's a little bit stiffer than what you'd find on the back end of a typical soldering iron. And the other thing that's kind of a bigger deal is, because of the length of the cable, I have to leave this on the bench. And there has been times where this has fallen off the bench, and this is heavy, and it's going to pull the solder iron with it. And if it's hot, it ends up going towards my lap. That's a little bit scary. So you may want to like Velcro this or tie this down to your desk if you're going to use it this way. Just kind of watch out for that. But that's not really a negative. I mean, that's this thing is designed to be portable, and you can see it looked like it had, gone into standby because I hadn't touched it in a while. Buying something that's wrong, or you'll outgrow in a few months and then have to spend more money and buy it again. My advice to anybody doing this, because I kind of just went through this year, is if you're going to buy something, make sure that you're not going to have to buy another one in 6 months, right? If you're choosing goggles, buy the best goggles you can afford, because you don't want to outgrow them. And something that works for you really well right now, you may find that in 3 to 6 months, it's not cutting it anymore. So I have soldered some XT60 ends with some like 14 gauge wire. And this thing, it will do probably, on micros, it's perfect. Do a small quad, like a micro or a 2 or 3 inch build. It's absolutely perfect. Everything I've thrown at this so far has been great. Yeah, I think it's going to work for me for a while, and it wasn't super expensive. And the other thing about it, it's very, very light, and the handle is very, very small, smaller than I guess your typical solder iron. But for some reason, for me, that's really comfortable. It's like using a pen. I appreciate that. I can really kind of work with it with precision. Compared to some of the more expensive solder stations out there, those have built-in ESD or electrostatic discharge safe. You can run this in that way, but there's another little screw here, and you run a wire here to like a ground source, and that's, it's nice that it has the ability to be ESD safe, but that's not really practical. I've never used that. Yeah, so that screw is number 4 ground cable fixing screw. So I guess you run a cable to a ground, somewhere. Look, if you really want to be ESD safe, it does have the ability to do it. It's just not really something I think that most people are actually going to use. It's not super practical, but you could do it. So that's a plus. Really simple to use. You just press one of the buttons and hold it to start adjusting the temperature. And then once you're in temperature adjust mode, you just press right to get hotter and left to go cooler, and then you just let go and it'll go to that temp. And there's a little indicator here that will tell you if the solder iron is heating up or cooling down on the right hand side. I don't know if you can see that, which is kind of nice. There's a bunch of settings you can change as well. Basically, you have to hook a micro USB cable up to the computer, and you adjust a bunch of settings. And like I said, I have seen people, they have custom firmware for this. If you need it to get a little bit hotter, I don't know if that's good or not. Haven't had to do anything, but to be honest with you, I turn this thing on, I set the temperature, and I go. And it's been working great for me so far. Yeah, if you're in the market for a solder iron, maybe just get into the hobby and you're not sure. Like I said, down the road, I may end up getting eventually a kind of full-fledged solder station, and then that's okay, because then this can be my little field solder iron or portable solder iron when I get to that point. Something you're going to buy, and even if you do outgrow it, which might be a while before you do that, it will still continue to have a use. I have some DVR footage for you guys, so stay tuned, check that out. If you have any questions, just let me know. Feel free to ask in the comments down below. Enjoy, and I'll catch you next time. Later.
Alpha.